it's a pleasure to have Minister Cartabia here. Really welcome. It's a great honor to have you. And of course, it's also very nice. It's not the first time. We are trying to get back to our activity, and it's nice to see this hall with people, with friends, with new friends, Italian, Americans. Is really a great pleasure to go back to more or less normal life. Not yet completely normal, but we are approaching that normality, I hope. Of course, we are here because of the visit of Minister Cartabia, a very important visit to Washington and New York. And Minister Cartabia has been serving as Minister of Justice in the government of Prime Minister Draghi since February 2021. And between 2011 and 2020, she was a judge of the Constitutional Court of Italy, the Supreme Court of Italy, and the first woman to hold the office of the President of the Constitutional Court from December 2019 to September 2020. And she's now President Emeritus of the Constitutional Court. I have to say that when Minister Cartabia was elected to President of the Constitutional Court, it was really one of those moments in the history of our country. Personally, I felt so proud that I don't tweet very much, but in that day I tweeted because I thought it was really an historical moment, and I'm so honored and proud to have you here, Minister. So Minister Cartabia graduated with honors at the University of Milan, obtained a PhD in law from the prestigious European University Institute in Florence. She has taught in several Italian universities and was visiting scholar and professor in France, Spain, Germany, and here in the US in New York University. And she has a very long and strong tradition, I learned today, with Yale University also. She comes every year for one of those very, very, very high-level symposium that put together really the best minds in law and justice. Minister Cartabia, your visit to Washington comes at a very intense and busy time. It's a productive time in our bilateral relations with between Italy and the US. At the end of October, President Biden was in Rome for the G20. He had bilateral meetings both with our head of state and the Prime Minister. And a few days before, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, visited Italy to attend the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. Over the course of the last few weeks alone, the President of the Chamber of Deputies, as well as the Italian Minister of Defense, the Minister of Economy and Finance, the Minister of Economic Development, have visited Washington. This is not just, how can I say, a need and an envy to start working again and traveling again. It's really a testimony of how intense the relation between our two countries is. And I have to say, the pandemics was one of those times when you see really friends working together, caring for each other, and this was one of those times. So, we want also to start working again together and cooperating in any possible sectors of our lives. The conjunction of a solid and well-respected government in Italy, held by a leader of undisputed credibility, such as Prime Minister Draghi, and the new proactive Biden administration offers a unique opportunity to open a new chapter in the long-standing relationship between Italy and the United States. Following the crisis caused by COVID-19, the Italian economy is rebounding. Italy's GDP is projected to increase by 6% maybe also more than 6% in 2021, Italian exports, almost 1/3 of our GDP, increased by more than 22% in the first 8 months of 2021. And so far this year, export of Italian goods have been higher than the value set in the same period in 2019, which was a record year for our exports. More importantly, Italy is about to completely reshape and modernize its economy, taking advantage of the robust EU recovery plan approved in July last year. And Italy will be the first beneficiary of the EU's 750 billion euros recovery package, with a share of, between different packages is more or less 200 billion euros. The National Recovery and Resilience Plan submitted by President Draghi's government to the European Union and approved with full marks in July includes both major investments and deeply transformative reforms, which aim basically at the modernization of the country, the modernization of our economy, but not only our economy. So this is a very transformative time in which our country is not only rebounding from the epidemics, the pandemic, but also really thinking of what is necessary to go the further step. What is necessary is reform. And if there is one reform, people who knows Italy know that very well, if there is one reform that is really crucial, is precisely the judicial reform. And this is not only because of its necessity from a social standpoint of view, but also from an economic point of view. And of course, I call it the mother of all reforms. In a way, we need that to do all the rest. And the person who's handling this is the Minister of Justice, Professor Cartabia. And we are all here to hear from you what this reform is about, what sort of transformation we are aiming to, and what are the objectives, and what could be really the results of this reform. So with that, I leave you the floor, and thank you again to all of you for being here, but mostly to you, Minister Cartabia. Thank you.
So thank you so much for these very kind words by Ambassador Zappia. The way she introduced me raised the expectations, but I don't want to speak too long because I was told that I have a span of time that covers the time for cooking risotto, and I don't care, don't want to have the responsibility of having your risotto overcooked. I am from Milan, I can afford this. So let's say a few words about these reforms, the mother of all reforms. It is true that a thorough reform of the judicial system is necessary and is inescapable in Italy. It's one of the conditions that the European conditions that the European Commission asked to Italy for the release of the recovery funds to the value of 209 billion euros. But indeed, judicial reforms is necessary in all countries. It is something, the respect of the rule of law, the full independence of the judiciary, the full respect of human rights, the full respect of quality and efficiency in the judicial system are paramount parameters that the European Commission is asking to all the European countries. And for this reason, but also for the reason that we owe a reform to our citizens and the business that operates in Italy. Right now, the Italian justice system is a construction site with several projects and reform in progress, but with one considerable purpose, which is the modernization of justice, which is necessary in a democratic system. An objective as ambitious as necessary. I will divide this short presentation in 3 points. I will consider the reasons why these reforms are inescapable. Second, I would say something about the characters of these reforms. Then I would sketch a little bit the major plans of action, and then I will close with 2 short final remarks. First, why reform is necessary, you know much better than me. According to a survey conducted by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the main concern of investors, businessmen, companies, banks, all economic players is arriving in Italy and then being stuck for whatever reason in trial or civil process that lasts too many years. Time is not a secondary variable for defendant, individual or companies, whose reputation can be directly affected by the result of the judicial process or even by the process itself. Nor is it a secondary variable, let me add, for the victim of crime, whose claim deserve prompt intervention within a reasonable time scale. Time is important. That's why in the US Constitution, in the European Constitution, in the European Convention of Human Rights, in the Italian Constitution, there is a right, an individual right to a speedy trial. This right is recognized universally, but in some cases is not enough effective, and that's why we are working on this point. Italian courts are overburdened by cases and controversies. The backlog in most courts is staggering. In the Supreme Court, the Corte di Cassazione, we have more than 100,000 cases only in civil matters. The average duration of civil process is by far much too long. It's about 7.5 years, and this is the average, meaning that we have even much more than that. And in criminal trial, again, the average is more than 5 years, too long. Our judicial system is like an athlete with a ball and chain around his ankles. And we are working for liberating courts from the burden of the backlog, which ends up slowing down the whole country at the detriment of our present social and economic life and of the future generation. We have to think also to the next generation. In the near future, we have a commitment to reduce the average of duration of civil proceedings by 40% in 5 years, and criminal proceedings by 25% in 5 years. This was the point of an agreement with the European Commission after weeks of negotiations. We have a plan to get to the point that we have agreed with the Commission. And for the first year, 2021, the Italian Department of Justice has completed its milestones. We are only waiting for the final reading of the Civil Procedure Act that is expected by the Parliament by the end of November. The European Commission is following the reform process very closely. We are in contact with the European Commission on a regular basis, and we want to accept their suggestions because we can't afford to fail or to fall short of our commitments. We know that if we fail in the domain of justice, the whole funding of 209 billion euros will not be delivered or will be repealed. It's a big responsibility. The proper functioning of the justice system is a constitutional obligation, is a commitment with the European Commission, but it's important, moreover, because it is beneficial to social and economic life. It helps creating a favorable environment for investment and results in GDP growth. That's why the Draghi administration has undertaken a program of reforms which are, and here I am in my second point, courageous and resolute, pragmatic and collective. First, resolute, because as we have seen, data tells us that the problem is severe. It's time to make a change. It's time not to be afraid of taking unpopular decisions or disturbing consolidated habits. I am sure that the echo of the debates over the time limitation statute, the speedy trial limits last summer has reached even you. As you may know, relations between politics and the judiciary in Italy have never been calm and quiet in the past decades, nor are they in the present days. Making reforms in the judiciary is not like a walk in the park. Stamina, self-control, and open, among other things, and most of all, open disposition to mediation with a variety of stakeholders and different political parties are prerequisites for obtaining results. Second, these reforms are pragmatic. This is the hallmark of the old Draghi administration, pragmatism. And in order to improve the performance of the judiciary, we need resources. The government is well aware of that, has decided to invest in the justice sector as never been before in recent years. For the first time, after long years, reforms are not at zero cost. Quite the contrary, we are investing in digital infrastructure, we are recruiting new magistrates, we have introduced for the first time clerks in all courts, we are restructuring and constructing new judicial offices, so personnel means digitalization, buildings, innovative organizational modules, and regulatory efforts, all this together in order to achieve a necessary and long-awaited turning point in the judicial system. Third, the reform in the judiciary are a collective work. We have to keep in mind why reforming the judicial system is so difficult compared to other sectors. The judicial system is complex and a composite reality. The Minister of Justice has no power to direct or supervise the work of judges, and rightly so. Reform in the judiciary must come to terms with the autonomy and independence of each court, of each judge. These are constitutional values that we care a lot. Moreover, the Department of Justice in Italy shares the responsibility for the organization of the judicial system with the High Council of the Judiciary. So, the expected result cannot be reached unless all these subjects, each court at every level, the Minister of Justice, the High Council of the Judiciary, work together and achieve the same goals. Third point, I would like to sketch a little bit some plan of action of these reforms. We are undertaking a comprehensive set of reforms and projects, which is twofold. We are reforming some relevant pieces of legislation, but first and foremost, we are working on judicial organization. As to the legislative reform, I can tell you just the title of some of the chapters of the number of reforms we are dealing with. The insolvency legislation, in order to give companies new possibility to take action to prevent bankruptcy after the crisis brought about by the pandemic. The Civil Procedure Act, to encourage the use of alternative dispute resolution methods and to simplify procedures. The Criminal Procedure Act, to prioritize activity of courts on serious crimes, to enhance the control of judges on the activity of prosecutors, and indeed to correct the procedure from unnecessary burdens. The Tax Procedure Act, which is something that will come next year to reduce the backlog, especially in the Supreme Court. The reform is also requested for the organization of the honorary judges. And finally, the reform we are working on in this moment concerns the judicial councils and the rules concerning the status of judges, recruitment, career, responsibility, in order to enhance their accountability while respecting their independence. But together with these reforms of some pieces of legislation, in my view, in our view, organization is crucial. In our tradition, this point, looking and reflecting and focusing on organization, has been too much underestimated and for a long, long time. That is why I consider that two are the most relevant measures that we are taking in this moment in the reforms of justice. The first is the launch of the so-called Office for Trial, which implies a massive recruitment of young graduates in law acting as clerk for courts. To give you the idea, we have launched a call for more than 8,000 positions. In Italy, we have less than 10,000 judges, so almost every judge can have a clerk. It's not exactly in this way because in our system, clerks are imagined to serve the court, not as an assistant for each judge, but the number are doubling the personnel that is working on judicial cases. And when we launched the call, I was impressed by the fact that almost 67,000 law graduates have applied. This week we are starting with the selection, and then we will have a couple of months of training, and then they will start serving in the courts in February 2022. In the meanwhile, we are also working with each court in order to set up an appropriate and tailored organizational module. We need judges to prepare projects in order for the proper allocation of these resources. It's not enough to give people to courts. We need to know in advance what they can do for the courts in order to address the specific problem of each court. This will be really a paradigm shift in our way of conceiving the work of the judiciary. The second fundamental pillar is the idea of setting up a monetary system. We are working to set up an observatory to monitor the duration of judicial procedure. The idea is to collect data from all judicial offices in the country on a regular basis, to publish them in order to assess the performance of each court. The disposition time is very uneven from region to region, and we need to monitor each situation. We are envisaging some flanking measure to help courts in difficulty in order to provide more personnel, more magistrates, more instruments in order to face the specific problem that arises from the monitoring of data. So, in this situation, reforming a number of pieces of legislation, reforming the organization of the judicial system, I think that we can close with two final remarks. First, we know very well that the challenge is formidable. The number that we have to reach in 5 years is really daunting, is a really big challenge. But we believe that we can make it. And I can say that I believe that we can make it because I'm visiting all the judicial offices in the country. And everywhere I can tell you that there is a sort of spirit of renewal, a desire for a renaissance of the judicial system. When I visit this court, I see that the judges are motivated. They are living through a sort of period of a new beginning in their professional life. They are determined to rebuild people's confidence in the judiciary. Second and final remark. I have repeated even tonight, time and again, that we have a main purpose. This purpose is to make the administration of justice in Italy more smart, swift, efficient, immediate. We are working towards this purpose with a short-term policy based on funding, resources, personnel, organization. But we have also a cultural idea, a long-term idea to be developed, which is to cultivate a culture of, let's say, restorative justice. We want the judicial system to be able to repair conflicts, divisions, to settle disputes, to recompose relationship. After all, courts are meant to settle conflicts and controversies. And we know very well in Italy, like in the United States, that we are living in very extremely polarized societies where disagreements easily turns into conflict, and conflict turns into anger, protest, unresolvable dissent. That's why we think that we have to carefully think about what kind of justice we want to promote. We need to introduce in our system instrument and possibility to settle conflicts in a way that rebuild links, relationship, and confidence in social life. That's why we are supporting so much the idea of negotiated settlement for business in crisis, incentive for alternative dispute resolution, mediation, assisted negotiation, and above all, restorative justice in criminal matters. In December, we are convening in Venice a conference of all the ministries of justice of the Council of Europe. We will be the president of the intern of the Council of Europe, and we want to speak about restorative justice. I believe that this is a priority of our society. The priority is to learn how to diffuse the potential for conflict, whatever the nature of the conflict is, before it erupts. The judicial system can contribute to diffuse a culture of reconciliation, and this will be the most effective contribution to the renovation of the machinery of justice that we can offer to our future generation. Thank you so much.